the other big story and our other big focus on Global Mirror. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever dreamt of working for the most high-profile EV company in the world, well, here's a chance. No, pardon. Tesla has finally started recruiting in India just days after its CEO Elon Musk and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's meeting during Prime Minister's recent trip to the United States. A LinkedIn job post has revealed that Tesla is seeking candidates for as many as 13 positions across Mumbai and Delhi. In fact, a Reuters report says Tesla has even selected 2 spots for its first showrooms in Mumbai and Delhi. Now, Tesla's move to hire for various roles in India marks a pivotal moment in the electric vehicle sector, with the company setting its sights in one of the world's largest car markets. Now, the company is actively recruiting, as we said, for positions across customer-facing and technical roles in cities like Mumbai and Delhi, underscoring its readiness to expand operations. Key positions include service technicians, delivery operations specialists, and customer engagement managers, suggesting that Tesla is gearing up for both direct consumer engagement and local infrastructure support. A problem for Tesla will be India's high import duty, which has long been a barrier to foreign automakers. But the recent reduction of custom duties on high-end cars and bikes from 110% to 70% has significantly improved the viability of introducing premium EVs like Tesla's Model 3 and Model Y. This regulatory shift could open the floodgates for a range of electric vehicles, and Tesla, with its global reputation and innovative technology, is well positioned to lead the charge. Pun intended. Tesla's previous engagement with India has been cautious, with concerns over infrastructure, high taxes, and limited demand for electric cars stalling progress. However, the demand for green vehicles is on the rise, especially as India looks to combat pollution and reduce its reliance on fossil fuels. With India's government prioritizing sustainability and the growth of its EV ecosystem, including initiatives to reduce import taxes and provide incentives for domestic manufacturing, the stage is set for Tesla to make an electrifying start in India. The next stage would likely be setting up a gigafactory to locally produce cars, batteries, and other components that will not only help Tesla sidestep import taxes, but also position India as a key manufacturing hub for the company's future global supply chain. A localized production facility could drive prices down, boost local job creation, and provide Tesla with the scalability it needs to provide the growing demand for EVs across the region. Now, challenges, of course, remain, but if successful, this could pave the way for widespread EV adoption, disrupt traditional automotive players, and set India on the path towards a cleaner, more sustainable future. The coming months, of course, will reveal the full extent of Tesla's commitment here, but let me now go across to my guest who's joining me at this point here to understand further about what could we get from Tesla's adventure in India. In India, we have been joined by Dr. Sudhir Mehta, who is the chairman and MD of Pinnacle Industries, someone who understands India's EV sector very well at this point here. Good evening, Dr. Mehta. Thank you for joining us tonight on Global Mirror. Dr. Mehta, what is your first response when you saw these LinkedIn posts which came out here? It's official, Tesla is coming to India. As an entrepreneur, as someone who represents India Inc., does that make you excited?
I think let me start on a lighter note and say that the LinkedIn post which came today has been one of series of news items that have been coming almost every few months about the entry of Tesla. And in the lighter note, what I saw somebody saying was Tesla cheese hai bahut mast. Because I think the kind of publicity that they have got before they've come into India is enormous. Now, let's set the discussion in context. As of now, there is no official announcement that Tesla is coming to India. If and when they do, I think that's fantastic. That's fantastic for the Indian auto industry. That's fantastic for the EV ecosystem. But they have not officially announced that. Number two, the Indian EV ecosystem is actually thriving very well. It's amongst the fastest growing EV ecosystems in the country. Indian companies, as well as many global companies, have already entered India, and the best of global products are coming to India or will come in the next couple of years. What are the main reasons that one would look to have a company like Tesla in India? I think let's spend a moment to look at that. The first and foremost is it's more choice for the customer, which is, of course, very good. Second is, can it develop an Indian EV ecosystem, which can then first produce for India and then produce for the world? Number two. And number three, any OEM brings with it a whole supplier ecosystem, which then develops and then results in job and ultimately taxation for the government. Now, I think if Tesla is fulfilling all of these criteria, then certainly Tesla is extremely welcome. And I think the government has been rightfully measured in its response for Tesla. Tesla is welcome, but Tesla must comply with all of the regulations that the other auto companies in India do. They must localize, they must produce in India, they must meet the localization requirements, and then they're most welcome. And I think this is bound to happen. It's a question of time, because the Indian EV market outside of China is today the most attractive. And the recent example of Mahindra, what you can see, they produced a fantastic product, and you saw the response. In less than one day, almost 50,000 customers booked a Mahindra vehicle, which was almost half of what the whole EV car market last year was. So this goes to show that whenever there's a good new product, customers will respond. And similarly, if and when Tesla comes in, I'm sure customers will respond very positively.
Dr. Mehta, the immediate flashpoint that comes to my mind, given the fact, I mean, let's bring the politics into it, given the fact that Elon Musk is very close to US President Donald Trump, and we just came off the back of a very bruising tariff battle over Harley-Davidsons, and which led to, of course, the government reducing the tariffs levied on Harley-Davidson in order to disincentivize them from importing them rather than just building up a plant and manufacturing, which is what India's plan A would be. Do you foresee a similar problem happening with Elon Musk and Tesla as well? But as you pointed out, obviously India will want Mr. Musk or Tesla to set up base in India, manufacture products here, which will create jobs, help build the Indian economy. But if Tesla decides to come in purely through the CBU route, as it's called, completely built unit route, the high tariffs could be a big problem.
Yeah, sure. If Tesla decides to take the CBU route, then at best it will be a niche player. At best it will have niche volumes. If you want to succeed in India, the only way to succeed, as international companies have shown, and that's also the only way to make money in India, which incidentally has been one of the markets where international automotive companies have done very well. Take the example of Hyundai, which recently took back almost 25,000 crores after their IPO. Take the example of Suzuki, which is almost a marginal player in Japan, but 80% of their global profit comes from India. So India is definitely a very positive market, provided you make the investments to produce here. And I'm sure Tesla will do this over a period of time. The 14 jobs that are indicated is a very small number. Fortunately, the Indian automobile industry produces hundreds of thousands of new job opportunities. The city of Pune, where I live, has more than 100,000 automotive engineers. So putting that in context, this is a very small number. It's a welcome development, but I think for Tesla to become a serious player, they will have to focus on the Indian market. They will have to also adapt their product for the Indian market. For instance, items like suspension, items like ground clearance, all of these will need to be adapted. And probably this may be a first step for Tesla really to build the ecosystem, which is service. And once you have a service infrastructure, then some kind of CKD and then eventually manufacturing will follow.
But Dr. Mehta, perhaps we're looking at this the wrong way. I mean, let's be honest, when Tesla first started, it was seen as the outsider, as a disruptor. But today, especially in India, given the number of fans Mr. Elon Musk has, Tesla is now seen as an aspirational brand, almost perhaps the likes of the supercar makers like Ferrari or Lamborghini. So perhaps customization to India might not be that big of a problem if Tesla decides to sell in niche numbers, which is what the supercar makers are okay with. But you mentioned a very interesting point. American car companies so far, I mean, the success stories in India have been the Japanese or the Koreans, to an extent the Europeans, who have tried to, the more they've indigenized, the more they've set up base, the more they've adapted and come up with made in India, made for India products that have done well. But the two big American car companies which have made their foray into India, both General Motors and Ford, have both had to leave India given the fact that they could not adapt to the market. Would that be a concern, or at least would those be cautionary tales which Mr. Musk or Tesla's, the brains at Tesla, would be quite keen to learn from?
Yes, sure. Tesla, I'm sure, will learn from those examples. In the case of those two companies, one is the time period that they came in was different. Secondly, at some point, they tried to bring in old models into India. The Indian customer is today one of the most discerning in the world. It's also amongst the most value conscious. So you cannot bring in old products. I'm sure when Tesla comes in, they will bring in something which is state of the art, which of course can be adapted. But also remember, the market is not the same. 2011, Elon Musk famously made a statement where he laughed at the BYD products. Now, BYD is giving Tesla a global run for its money. In many markets like Thailand or Indonesia, BYD is far ahead of Tesla. So it's not that Tesla is the only game in town. It's a fantastic product. It's a product which for many customers would be the aspirational product that they would aspire to. But for some time to come, unless they develop the ecosystem, it will remain, to my mind, a niche product which will not do the huge numbers, which will kind of really make the Indian EV ecosystem
Dr.
go
Mehta,
ahead.
then
But
if I flip,
of course, they're most welcome.
Dr. Mehta, if I flip the script around, what does India gain? I mean, Mr. Nitin Gadkari has made no bones about his intention to push for a more EV-centric car ecosystem in the country. With no offense meant to BYD, they're great companies and they've had reasonable success in India so far. Tesla is a brand image, and Tesla is possibly the biggest brand when it comes to EVs at this point. If Tesla decides to make a serious entry, do you foresee a lot more consumer interest peaking in terms of electric vehicles in general and going by trickle-down effect that could only benefit smaller car makers or other brands which sell in segments much lower than the segments Tesla will do? To sum up it, do you see Tesla's making EVs cool in India, a lot cooler than they actually are at the moment?
100%, no doubt about that. Again, I go back to the example of Mahindra. They came with a fantastic product and see the response that they got. Similarly, if Tesla comes into India, you're going to see a lot of young aspirational customers which are looking at it. But let me set also the tariff and the taxation issue in context, because I think the government has been actually very right in being measured. It's very easy to say that Tesla should be allowed in. And if the government gives them very large incentives, I'm sure they would come in the next day. But the fact is, all of this ultimately comes from taxation. The auto industry, let's remember, is the largest contributor to taxation in our country. It's what's paying for all of the other things, the social programs in our country. Now, suddenly, if you tell somebody that, listen, I'll give you $1 billion in incentives for bringing in a product, and I'm not saying this is the figure here, is this something that as a country we can afford to do? So there is a larger question here. Incentives, to my mind, should go to companies which are developing the Indian ecosystem and ultimately end up paying taxes which benefit consumers in India.
All right, Dr. Sudhir Mehta, thank you so much for joining us and what's been a fascinating conversation on Global Mirror at this point. Quickly, let's go across to some news.